They locked up the wrong man, and now WWE is paying the price. Like and subscribe, because this is the story nobody saw coming. Seth Rollins walked out of that police station a free man, and the entire WWE Universe collectively lost its mind. But here's what's really burning everyone up. While Seth was breathing fresh air and fixing that signature smirk back onto his face, Paul Heyman was being escorted out in handcuffs. Paul Heyman, the most untouchable, slippery, manipulative mind in the history of professional wrestling, the man who has never once in his entire career faced any real consequence for his actions, finally got exactly what was coming to him. And the look on his face? Pure disbelief. Because Paul Heyman has spent decades believing he was above it all, above the rules, above accountability, above every single person who ever tried to stop him. And in one shocking, jaw-dropping reversal, that illusion shattered into a million pieces right in front of the entire world. Let's back this up and break down exactly how we got here, because this story didn't start overnight. And if you think this is just about Seth Rollins getting released from custody, you are dangerously missing the bigger picture. For weeks, Paul Heyman had been orchestrating one of the most elaborate setups in recent WWE history. Think about it. Heyman doesn't breathe without a plan. He doesn't blink without calculating the consequence. Every move he makes is 17 steps ahead of everyone else in the room. So when Seth Rollins suddenly found himself in legal jeopardy, surrounded by evidence that pointed directly at him, with authorities closing in, the WWE Universe was stunned. Seth, the visionary. Seth, the man who sees everything coming. Somehow caught completely off guard. That should have been the first red flag. That should have made every single one of us stop and ask, wait a minute, since when does Seth Rollins get blindsided? The answer is simple. He doesn't. Not unless someone monumentally intelligent constructed the blind side specifically for him. What year did Paul Heyman first become a special counsel in WWE, and who was his first client in that role? Drop your answer below. The surveillance footage, the witness statements, the so-called evidence that had law enforcement convinced Seth Rollins was their man. Every single piece of it had Heyman's fingerprints on it, not literally, because Paul Heyman is far too calculated for that, but strategically, intellectually, unmistakably. When investigators started pulling the threads, they didn't unravel Seth Rollins. They unraveled a masterpiece of manipulation. And at the center of that masterpiece, sitting like a spider at the heart of a perfectly constructed web, was Paul Heyman. Here's what made this even more infuriating for Heyman loyalists and Roman Reigns disciples everywhere. Seth Rollins didn't even fight back the way people expected. He didn't come out screaming. He didn't cut a promo on Raw calling out the injustice. He was quiet, methodical, patient, and that is what destroyed Heyman's plan from the inside out. Because Heyman built his entire trap on the assumption that Seth would panic, that Seth would react emotionally, make mistakes, say the wrong things to the wrong people, and bury himself deeper. Instead, Seth Rollins did what the visionary does best. He saw the whole board. He waited for the right moment. And when the truth came to light, it came like a freight train, unstoppable, undeniable, and absolutely devastating to everyone standing in its path. The moment authorities confirmed that the evidence had been fabricated, that witnesses had been coached, that documents had been manipulated, the entire case against Seth Rollins collapsed. Not slowly, not over weeks of legal proceedings. It collapsed immediately, completely, and humiliatingly. Seth walked out, and Paul Heyman, who had apparently gotten too comfortable, too confident, too convinced that he had once again played everyone perfectly, walked directly into the arms of the people he thought he had fooled. The irony is almost poetic, almost Shakespearean. The man who built his entire legacy on controlling narratives, on spinning stories, on making the guilty look innocent and the innocent look guilty, finally got consumed by his own story. The curtain pulled back, the wizard stood exposed, and this time, there was no microphone to save him, no promo to cut his way out of, no client powerful enough to intimidate the truth into silence. Now let's talk about what this means going forward, because if you think Paul Heyman's arrest is the end of this story, you haven't been watching WWE long enough. Roman Reigns is watching all of this from a distance. The tribal chief, the man who has operated beside Paul Heyman for years, the man whose entire run at the top of WWE was built in partnership with this genius-level manipulator, Roman is calculating right now, every single second of every single day, because Roman Reigns doesn't panic either. What Roman Reigns does is adapt, and the question that should be keeping every single one of you up at night is this: does Roman Reigns cut Heyman loose completely? Does he let Paul sink? Or does the bond between the tribal chief and his special counsel run deep enough that Roman steps back into the spotlight specifically to save the man who made him a legend? Because here's the thing about Roman Reigns that people always underestimate. Roman is loyal, fiercely, dangerously loyal to the people who have genuinely earned that loyalty. And Paul Heyman, whatever his crimes, whatever his manipulations, whatever his failures, has earned more of Roman Reigns' loyalty than perhaps any other person on this planet. These two didn't just work together, they built an empire together. They rewrote the history of WWE together. You don't just walk away from that because the law comes knocking. Seth Rollins has held the WWE World Heavyweight Championship multiple times, but can you name every single title Seth has held in his entire WWE career? Comment below and let's see who really knows their history. And then there's CM Punk, because you cannot tell this story honestly without addressing the fact that CM Punk is somewhere watching Paul Heyman get arrested with the most complicated set of emotions any human being has ever experienced. Think about the history. Think about the years of betrayal, manipulation, and broken trust between CM Punk and Paul Heyman. Punk handed Heyman his loyalty. Punk trusted Heyman with his career, his momentum, his legacy, and Heyman stabbed him in the back so smoothly, so perfectly, that it became one of the most iconic betrayals in wrestling history. CM Punk has never fully gotten over that. Not really, not deep down. And now, watching the man who destroyed him at his lowest moment getting led away in handcuffs, what does that do to Punk psychologically? Does it give him closure? Does it reignite something dark and furious inside him? Does it make him want to be the one standing in Heyman's face, looking him dead in the eyes, saying, "I told you this day would come"? Because WrestleMania 42 is right around the corner, and the air around this entire situation smells like a collision course that nobody can stop. Seth Rollins is free. Seth Rollins is furious. A man who was set up, humiliated, publicly dragged through scandal, and locked away from the sport he has dedicated his life to, that man doesn't come back calm. That man comes back like a storm. And Seth Rollins already operates at a level that most superstars in this company simply cannot match. Imagine what he looks like when he has genuine, real, legitimate grievance fueling every single thing he does. Imagine the promos. Imagine the matches. Imagine the moment Seth Rollins gets his hands on whoever still stands between him and the retribution he has absolutely earned. The WWE Universe has been robbed of Seth Rollins for too long, and now the gates have opened. The visionary is back. And every single person on that roster who had anything to do with putting him in that situation, every single person who smiled while Seth was suffering, needs to start looking over their shoulder. Paul Heyman sat in that interrogation room and realized something terrifying. For the first time in his professional life, he had no one to call, no client to invoke, no power to leverage, no story clever enough to talk his way free. The manipulator was finally, completely, devastatingly alone with the consequences of his own genius turned against him. And the WWE Universe? We are only at the very beginning of what comes next. Share this video right now because the people who miss what's coming next are going to be completely lost when this story explodes at WrestleMania 42. Everything is connected. Everything is building.